Welcome back, guys. Safe Space here on our 10 Tampa Bay YouTube page. I'm Ryan Bass, one of our anchors here for CBS in Tampa, and I'm so excited to welcome in Christina Furnival, who's joining us here. And this is going to be a really important topic because for all you parents out there, we're talking about your kids and mental health affecting your children. And specifically, Christina and I, we're going to get into bullying, which I think is really important. And just to kind of run through, Christina, your history a little bit, because I'm so glad to have you here with us. You're a licensed professional clinical counselor. You're based out in California, but you've got a master's of science in professional counseling at Lipscomb. You've been at Vanderbilt University as well. You're a mom, you're a wife, you're a mental health therapist, you're a writer, you're a public speaker, you're an author. You have done it all. And I think the coolest part of all of this that I love is that all of this kind of is drawn off your own experiences with your daughter. Like I love the aspect of you taking some of your struggles and trying to help others out there. It's really inspiring.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm excited to talk with you today.
I'm really excited to talk with you. And I think the topic of bullying is something that I think it's really important to have a conversation between parents and children about, because bullying goes on, and especially in the age that we're in with social media, it can continue well beyond outside of just the walls of the school or the classroom. And so I did want to get into first, just kicking off, warning signs of bullying. Obviously, that you've dealt with this as a parent, you've talked about this and in therapy and session. So can you take me through just some of the signs that parents should watch out for and what they should notice?
Absolutely. So bullying, just first of all, is a negative and ill-intentioned pattern of behavior where someone is demonstrating aggression or dominance over another person. And so what you would likely see if your child is experiencing bullying is, first of all, you're going to have a gut feeling. Parents always seem to know, right? My child's acting a little bit different, a little bit off. I feel like something's going on. And what I want you to do when you have that gut feeling is listen to it. Your gut is usually right. And then initiate a conversation with your child and pay attention to the signs and signals. What you might see are emotional signs and signals, behavioral signs and signals, and physical signs and signals. So emotional, you might see that they are starting to act withdrawn, or maybe they had a big friend group and now they're only engaging with a couple of friends. Maybe they're exhibiting negative self-talk and you're hearing themselves put themselves down, or they're expressing hopelessness or helplessness. If you're seeing those things, that's the emotional impact of bullying, likely. The more behavioral side of things is if their eating habits shift or change, they're starting to eat a lot more, or they're not eating that much. Sleeping habits, same thing. They're really tired, or they're just seem to be up at all hours. Along with that, you might encounter your child telling you, I don't want to go to school. I don't like going to school. I hate school. It sucks. I don't want to be there, and come up with a million reasons of why they shouldn't go. They might also start to complain of physical symptoms like stomach aches or headaches. And that actually, there's physiological changes when you're experiencing depression or anxiety as a result of bullying, or just in general. There's more hydrochloric acid going on in your stomach, which makes you have physical pain and physical symptoms. So sometimes they're making it up because they don't want to go, because they know they're going to deal with a bully at school. But sometimes they actually are having physical symptoms and real headaches. So you're going to want to look for all of those signs and symptoms. And then in my therapy practice, one thing that I realized when working with youth who were experiencing depression was the term they would use a lot of times to explain when they were feeling depressed and sad was boredom. It's boring. I'm really bored. And it's kind of a catch-all term to describe that they're just not feeling good and something's wrong. And so if you see any of these signs and symptoms, it's a perfect time to initiate a conversation and really just check in with your kiddo.
That's interesting too, because like sometimes when you hear bored, well, how do we entertain, right? But there might be something more below the surface that parents are aware of. And I love those signs and just the practical signs to be able to help and connect with your child. I was reading some statistics just about bullying from stopbullying.gov. And, I'd read that about 20% of students ages 12 to 18 have experienced bullying nationwide. 15% were bullied online or by text. And I want to get to that social media aspect of it in a second, but I like to kind of relate some of my struggles, in this series, because I'm someone, Christina, that's gone through therapy. And some of that therapy that I've had to work through from my past is bullying. I was bullied heavily when I was in middle school and coming up through high school, whether it be because I had acne or I had braces or I wore glasses. I wasn't accepted. And I was very resistant to my mother kind of getting involved. I was embarrassed to have her step in because I didn't want it to look like, oh, here comes your mom to save the day, right? But I needed it. I didn't realize how much I had needed it. And so just can you detail kind of the delicate balance for parents that are listening of even if their child is resistant, how do they step in? How can they help? Because it can be kind of detrimental. And while your child may be saying, no, mom or dad, I don't want this, they kind of maybe need it.
Yeah, it is really tricky. It's a fine line of what do I do? How much do I do? There's some research that shows that if parents step in too much, that it tells the child indirectly, you can't handle this, right? So you don't want to go that far, but on the other hand, you don't want your child to feel like you don't care or you don't know or you're not helping when they do come to you, if they do tell you something. I think conversations from early childhood and setting an atmosphere in the home of openness, honesty, trust, and belief in each other is really important to set that foundation for when your child is going through something tough like this, that they feel comfortable to come to you. I think as well, conversations about, like you said, you didn't want to go to your mom because you don't want your mommy stepping in and protecting you. A lot of youth have that reason for not reporting. They feel like they don't know who to tell, they don't know what to say, and they're afraid of making it worse. And I think that one is a big one because you're like, oh gosh, I don't want to look lame that my mom's coming to school and fighting my battles for me. But if you have conversations with your child and explain that actually, if you let me know and I can let your school know, then you have this support system. Then you have this net of love around you to step in and help you so that you're not fighting by yourself. And I think if we can shift it like that and the youth can understand that they're building a team, so they're not facing this alone, then that can be helpful for them to start opening up about it.
I love that aspect of, kind of circumvention and maybe not the parent directly stepping in, but alerting others that can step in and help. But here's part of the problem, Christina, in the society and the era that we live in now is social media makes it that much easier for bullying, especially among young teens that are maybe on Instagram or Snapchat, TikTok, what have you. Like those avenues now are open for the internet bullying, which is tough because back when I was in school, MySpace and those things back when you were in school, like those things were maybe just starting. And now that bullying can continue long after you leave the halls, of your school or your classroom. So how delicate is that? And how do parents notice maybe if there's cyberbullying or what can kids do maybe to tune out some of that stuff because it's constant?
It is constant and it's heartbreaking. Back when we were in school, if you did get bullied, you'd come home hopefully to a safe haven where you could not think about that, or you could move forward or move past it, or just have the friends over that do love you and treat you right. And now 9 out of 10 youth use social media or game. And in both those ways, they're connected kind of permanently around the clock. And youth often have their phones in their bedrooms. And so they're waking up in the middle of the night and sending Snapchats or messaging each other. And it's really, really hard for them to get away from it. Some families set firm limits around social media use or telephone privileges. And I think that's a smart way to go. It does present conflict in the family because the youth will be upset when their parent tells them they don't get to have their phone in the bedroom. And my best friend gets to do whatever she wants. Why don't I get to? And so that's your decision as a parent of where your comfort levels are and what safety measures you want to have in place for your child. Because as a youth, as independent and capable as they feel like they are, they're not really equipped to make these sorts of decisions and have the access to the World Wide Web at their fingertips. So I think having that conversation as a family and designing structure around that is important. Having blocks, there's different apps where you can have parental control. Now, obviously, our youth are very smart and they know how to get around a lot of those, but best efforts are good. And then also speaking with your youth about the dangers of the internet and maybe setting not necessarily boundaries on phone or computer use in general, but maybe certain apps or certain people, okay, when we're home, you don't message with so-and-so friend because, it always gets under your skin, and that's a boundary that we're going to set. That's a limit that we're going to place. So I think those are some ways that you can help with that, but it is really hard. I think the statistics you give are probably understated. A lot of youth may not be willing to share, as well as they may not even be recognizing that what they're experiencing is bullying. If they are if it's a pattern and it's something they've been growing up with, to some extent, they may think it's normal, or their parents may say, oh, kids will be kids. I went through that and look how I turned out, right? And so teaching your children from an early age, what is a healthy friendship? What is not a healthy friendship? What is behavior that is not tolerable and that you should stand up against and speak up against, I think is really important too. There's actually a graphic, I think it's from the program Reach Out, and it's called the Teen Power and Control Wheel. And it shows you in colors and very visually the different elements of a friendship when someone is abusing the power in the relationship and mistreating you. And that can help teens to open their eyes about what's really happening for them or with them or to their friends.
One of the interesting things I think you brought up, and you have kind of expressed this through, your book, is boundaries for friendships. And I loved that idea of maybe if there is that one friend that kind of gets under your skin or pokes fun at you or what have you, hey, use the house as a safe haven to break away from that. Can you kind of dive a little bit deeper into setting those boundaries and how children can go about that, how parents can help set those boundaries? Because I love that example you gave.
Thank you. Yeah. So when it comes to boundaries, first of all, a boundary, we can imagine like a fence around a yard. It clearly defines what is your property and what is not yours. And you have a gate in your fence, which allows you to determine who's allowed to enter and who's not. And so it's a way of protecting your property. And you can imagine if you were a gardener, you love to tend to your front yard and you spent hours in there making it perfect, but you didn't have a fence around it. And every day the neighborhood Fido comes over and does his business and walks all over your lawn and you, metaphorically, and then goes about his merry way. And you're left stewing, you're left upset because you're cleaning up after him and it's not your responsibility, but you haven't set a physical boundary around your yard. So you reflect and you realize, you know what, I want to protect what is mine and what I value, and I'm going to have a fence installed. And then with your boundary, Fido's not coming in your yard anymore. So the concept of a physical boundary is really clear. When it comes to interpersonal and relational boundaries, it's less visible. But what we have to do to set the fence, if you will, is use our words. And we have to expressly and clearly speak what we are or what we are not willing to accept in the treatment of us or of other people. And so that's the idea of a boundary. And if you're able to explain that to your child from a young age, then they can learn and start to practice those. So even with my children, if I'm in the middle of something and they're wanting my attention, I'll turn to them and I'll say, I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. However, I'm in the middle of something right now. So I'm going to set a boundary that I'm going to finish this and then I will give you my full undivided attention. And it's that modeling of it as well as explaining it that helps them to learn when they're young what to do along the way. And when it comes to friends, in the story that I wrote, the main character is nice, she's lovely, she's kind, she's easy to like. And she has this one friend who sometimes picks fights with her. And it made her want to work harder to earn the love of this friend. And it didn't work. And so she spoke to her parents, she spoke to her teacher, and she realized that she needed to set a boundary. And so she lets the friend know, I'm not okay with how you're treating me. So I'm going to remove myself right now and go play with the friends that do treat me right. However, this is the gate and the fence. When you're ready to be nice to me again, you're welcome to join us. So it allows that flexibility. It's a firm yet flexible limit of what you're willing to accept or what you're not.
For those that maybe would like more to chat with you, because you don't just deal with bullying, you deal with a lot of, child and involved parent therapy, whether it be postpartum depression, whether it be, how to work through your children, boundaries, relationships. I love your story. I love how much you're involved with it. So how can those out there, if they're interested in contacting you, get in touch with you?
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's really sweet. And that means a lot because I do go out every day wanting to make a difference. And so to be able to know that I'm having an impact means a lot to me. You can find me on my website, which is ChristinaFurnival.com. I'm also on social media. I have 2 accounts, one for my therapeutic motherhood account, and that one is This Is Real Life Mama. And my other account is for my social emotional children's book series. And my first book, The Not So Friendly Friend, was the one we were referencing earlier. And that account is Capable Kiddos Books. And the whole series, the idea is to help children feel capable to handle whatever life throws their way.